right. So now that we've learned a little more about you guys, let's get into it. So I think with the main thing with learning, the perspective of, you know, as a man, I think it's important to talk about your childhood and how you guys became the men you are today, right? So I just kind of want, everyone to go around and kind of like talk about, start with your childhood, your upbringing. How were you raised? Like, what were some things, lessons you learned from your parents? What was it like being a young boy, being raised around your parents, or if you have siblings? And just share some valuable lessons you learned. What things did you uh what things do you feel that you experienced differently from maybe other girls you grew up with or knew maybe from school or anything like that? So let's just start with Rubiani.
All right. So a little bit my upbringing. I'm sorry. A little bit about my upbringing is I was raised practically by a single mother, and it was pretty much like that my entire childhood. And the biggest lesson I probably learned were during when I was playing basketball because I was a big basketball player. When I was younger. I say like it was a long time ago, but it was back when I was like 15, 16, 17, 18, whatever. And I learned a lot of my lessons from my coaches because I really didn't have that, father figure growing up. So I had to, derive a lot of my, my a lot of masculine things and like I guess the masculine essence and things that were necessary for a young man to learn. I, learned it from these coaches and I've been able to kind of like re-educate myself into what it means to be a good young masculine man, and that's pretty much it for I guess my upbringing.
Okay, and I'm sorry I didn't catch it. Did you have siblings or you were just the only child?
No, no, I have a younger brother,
Younger brother.
and
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Thank you. All right, Shahab.
First, I'll start out by saying shout out Porker, bro. His Rubiani's younger brother there.
Nice.
I was so my parents emigrated to Canada in about 1999, 1998. I was born in 2000. And originally, my mom got sick, so she was in the hospital for the first 3 or 4 years of my life, and my dad was always working. So I was raised by the most masculine man, the biggest alpha male I've ever met in my life, my grandpa.
Mm.
All the traits I have gotten, I would have to give it to him because he genuinely worked so hard to raise me, and I'm truly appreciative of the fact that I had a grandfather in my life that I was able to look up to and understand what it means to be a man. But even then, they come from a cultural background where they have a lopsided understanding of both the religion, I'm
Mhm.
Muslim, and on top of it, masculinity, where it's not based on prophetic masculinity, it's based on the cultural masculinity, I would say. We can go into that a little bit after. So I have three sisters, so I have to serve as a role model for them. I do my best. But as a man who is developing, you have to consistently test the ideas you're
Mhm.
exposed to, the ideas you develop. And I truly believe that life is a journey where upon you learn what it means to be a man. And that's not something that ends until you die. Because I believe we cannot judge a man until he's in his grave. That's why I
Mhm.
don't think we should be taking role models that are alive today, like Andrew Tate or like other content creators. We should be taking people already dead because we know how their stories end. We don't know how the people around us stories end. And in terms of the comparison between how the women around me were raised, how other men around me were raised, I'll be completely honest. A lot of them seem to be raised by the state or by the university apparatus or the school apparatus because they go more towards spewing ideas
Mhm.
they would that were fed to them essentially. The propaganda that they share in school, I believe a lot of people's ideas aren't actually their own. They're just ideas told to them. Then you can say, Shab, how do you know your ideas are your own as well? But I can argue and say that I've tried and tested my ideas. I sit and think about what I say. I at least try to take on other people's perspective. Most people, when I talk to them about feminism or I talk to them about masculinity, like, oh, you're toxic masculine. Oh, am I toxic masculine? Really? You haven't even heard my idea to its fullest extent.
Right.
And yeah, that's why I do believe that coming on these platforms and sharing our
Mhm.
ideas together as a group is a great way to be able to have other people try and test our ideas, clip us up, make us go a little viral. You know what I'm saying? And then we can sit down and talk about it.
Okay, I'm gonna get back to you, Shahab, but let me go. Let's go to Ethan.
Yeah, like Rubiani, I was raised by a single mother. Um, you know, of course, there were lovers, boyfriends, whatever, what have you, that came and went. I have an older brother, two younger sisters, and so anything that I have learned about what it means to be a man, anything about masculinity, probably is just an amalgamation of all the things I've decided to gather from the male role models that were in my life, no matter how briefly, as well as any research I may have done on my own. You know, I never had anyone to teach me how to tie a tie, so I figured out how to do it on my own. I learned how to do oil changes on my car on my own, just whatever I could grab from wherever, and I just kind of pieced it together to create this image of who I wanted to be as a man. And that's kind of it, really.
Okay, thank you, Theo.
Yeah. So for my childhood, I had four older sisters, so similar. And my house was very much just filled with like mental illness. With my sisters going through just depression, and suicide attempts. One of them actually succeeded, so that was very much a burden on my family for a very long time.
I'm sorry to
My
hear
parents
that.
were super busy with them. Hey, yeah, yeah. But my parents were like super busy with them, right? And so I didn't really get to like have that parental figure. It was very much me alone at the house almost all the times. I wouldn't see them for days at a time. But despite that, it gave me a lot of time to think and consider like what I want for my life, who I want to be. Um, and like as for masculinity, I would say it mostly comes from my father. Even though I didn't really see him much, I did like when I did see him, he was always at his best, right? He was a hard worker, wanted to serve, wanted to provide as much as he could for everyone. Never really got like angry. Didn't really have those vices. Had huge expectations on me of what I should be. Like I was clear when I let him down, and that kind of like drive has pushed me to be better.
Hmm. Okay, thank you. All right, Youssef.
My parents came to the Netherlands in the 80s from Pakistan, and they stayed here, which was quite weird looking at it because most of my family from Pakistan origin either went to the UK or to the US. But I think that they made a right choice to stay in Amsterdam. We can come back to that later. I noticed in my whole family, the women are kind of leading the whole structure. It's quite a matriarchal structure, but I think that's in the whole quite common in South Asian communities that the women are quite leading the families, and the men. I mean, I would still call them masculine. It's not like they don't do anything. I mean, they do actually work a lot. They learn us how to shave. They learn us how to do and all that. But for some reason, I don't feel like we men get told to be proactive. It's not the South Asian communities. That's how I felt growing up. Looking at other South Asian people over here in other cultures, I saw the men over there were a lot more proactive.
Hmm.
However, I also noticed that they got quite naive about women and they always got their heart broken and all that stuff. Well, in my family, we quite learned how women worked because they were quite the proactive people. They also had this bad side at them, like they were gossiping and shit talking and quite doing all that stuff. And I was very about that in my relationship. So I never got my heart broken. But I
Hmm.
also felt that I wasn't as proactive as other men in my environment. So I had to learn that the hard way, and eventually we went to. That's my upbringing in a nutshell.
Okay, thank you very much, Youssef. Very interesting. All right, YS.
Um, my family came here from Afghanistan. We were refugees. I have like three other siblings. Where I got my masculinity was from like my brother, and the rest of it was just from myself. Having to deal with life's trials really makes you into a man.
Okay. All right, thank you. Now let me